Hey everyone, welcome to Elder Scrolls Online, and this is my sorcerer kind of build guide video that I'm doing, and I should have a disclaimer that this is my first real guide that I've ever done, or my first video guide. I've done a few written guides, but they're kind of crappy and I don't like to talk about those. But yeah, this is kind of my first guide that I'm attempting to do, and I want to note that it's obviously not the best. It's just kind of how I play. I play with the gear that I can get because I don't like to PvE, so I don't like to spend a lot of time getting my gear. So this is kind of just what I use, and if, I don't know, if you don't have a lot of time or you don't really care about running the best build, then I guess you can kind of follow along what I do. And I also want to note that I run 5 pieces of light armor, so as of right now, in 1 Tamriel, update 12, you're going to be very squishy, and if you're not careful, you're going to die very quickly, so yeah, that's going to happen. So anyway, I hope you kind of find this informative and useful, and I hope it's not a complete waste of your time. So first, I will start by saying my sorcerer is a Breton, and I would say the best races for a Magicka Sorcerer. Oh, I also want to say that this is for PvP. This is mainly geared towards PvP, but I pretty much PvE with the same gear, so you could do that too. But anyway, yeah. So the best races for a Magicka Sorcerer are probably High Elf, Breton, or Dark Elf. Those are the 3 that I would recommend. I like Breton just because I think High Elves are freakishly tall, but that has nothing to do with anything, so anyway, and I put 64 points into Magicka, so all your attributes go into Magicka. And I also use the Atronach Mundus Stone because actually my Magicka recovery is pretty good. I think if you're a High Elf, I believe you get a boost in Magicka recovery. So I would recommend go the Atronach, or you could also go the Thief, which I think increases your critical rating. So that might be useful too. Or maybe even the Shadow, which increases the critical damage. But I go the Atronach because I like to have a comfortable amount of Magicka recovery. And I guess food. I use the three stat foods. The purple one that raises your Magicka health and stamina, because I think that's the most useful for me. So for me personally, I run 5 pieces of Seducer, 5 Spinner, and then I have an extra slot, so I use 1 Molokina. But you could also use, I have Infernal Guardian, which is kind of nice because it gives you some extra Magicka. And yeah, I know my traits on here are kind of crappy. That's kind of all I've had the opportunity to get, although I could have sworn I had a Divine's Molokina piece somewhere, but I don't know where that is. But anyway, this is what I use. I've been using Seducer for a really long time, and it's probably not the best thing to use now. You could also use 5 pieces of, I think the Lich set is really good. I know a lot of people are using that. And some people also use, I don't know if I have it on here, Engine Guardian, which I guess that's cool, but I don't really like Engine Guardian. I don't think it's that good. But I guess if you have sustain issues, you can use that. And I know some people also use Valken Scoria, but I don't... These traits are kind of crap. So I'm not really using that right now, but I could see how that's useful. Though the proc chance is really low. I used it for a little bit, and it just felt like it didn't proc enough compared to the stamina sets. But, you know, favoritism and all that. And I also have Grothdar, yes, also in kind of crappy traits here, reinforced. And the damage is a little underwhelming, but if you want to run spinners on one bar here, have your destruction staff be as spinners, and then you can do the back bar Seducer. That way you can run 2 monster set pieces on your head and your shoulder. But basically this is just what works for me. And yeah, I don't have things golded out because I just don't have the time for that. And yeah, I run the spinners on my jewelry here, my waist, and my head. But I know a lot of people, I used to use willpower, but I've kind of sacrificed that so I can run 2 5-piece gear sets. And oh my god, dude, get your wolf out of my way. Anyway, So yeah, there's a lot of different sets you can use. I'm just saying this is what works for me because I'm really lazy and I don't like to do PvE at all. There's like a whole lot of sets, but I like spinners because of the spell penetration, and I like seducers because of the Magicka recovery. It gives you some sustain, which you definitely need as a Magicka build. You could also run Kagranak's Hope. That's a pretty good set, but I don't really like it on my Sorcerer. I like that more on my Templar. And yeah. Okay, so moving on. Oh, I'm running the Max Magicka glyphs on all of my armor. And for the jewelry, I have one with Magicka recovery, and the other two have spell damage, increased spell damage, or I think it's called spell harm. And if you want to, if you could deal with the lower recovery, Magicka recovery, you can run all three having spell damage, because that'll definitely give you a nice increase in your spell damage then. And both of my weapons have the increase your magical damage and spell damage glyph. I don't remember what that actual glyph is called. It might be like glyph of weapon damage or something, but yeah, that's what I put on both of my weapons. I guess I'll start with my destruction staff bar. I use Mage's Wrath, which is an execute, and it's not the best. It's no like radiant destruction, but it does the job for when your enemy's health drops pretty low. I usually start using that to finish them off. And then, of course, I have Crystal Fragments, which it's like, come on, like the Sorcerer's best skill. And anyone that doesn't use Crystal Fragments and uses, what's that other one? Crystal Blast. Oh my god, I have to cringe when I see that. So, yeah. And I put Hardened Ward on my offensive bar. I don't know if a lot of people do that. I've seen some people do that. But I like it because these skills, Hardened Ward and Harness Magicka, they only last 5 seconds now. Or, sorry, 6 seconds. So, I used to have it on my defensive bar, so by the time I would cast it, it would already be like halfway through, and then when it's really laggy, it takes too long to weapon swap, so I just stuck it on my offensive bar, and I find it way more useful because it also procs Crystal Fragments, which is definitely good, and I kind of sometimes will weave Hardened Ward with my other skills, and I feel like it gives me much more survivability having it on my offensive bar, so that's just kind of how I play. I don't know, it might not, it depends how you play. Other people might not like it, but it's worked out for me pretty well. I still die, but I feel like it's better than having it on my defensive bar. Okay, and then I have Crushing Shock, and I like this morph instead of, what's the other one, Force Pulse, because of the stun and setting enemies off balance, because you're gonna have a lot of like bow tards sniping you and stuff, and Crushing Shock will set people who are using like snipe and lethal arrow off balance. So if you have people like spamming that on you, that's useful. It'll set people using Radiant Destruction or Radiant Oppression off balance, which is useful because I hate those like Templars that stand in the back and spam you with Jesus Beam, so that's definitely useful. And there's a few other skills where it'll interrupt them, so I like having the interrupt on this. I think it's very useful, especially when I play solo, which is like 90% of the time. And then I have Velocious Curse, which this is just a really great skill. It's really good to use on Nightblades that like to kind of hit you and then try to stealth away, so you can kind of keep them in your sight. And it does a lot of damage now. And I think with one tamriel they changed it so multiple people can have, like multiple sorcerers can have their Velocious Curse on a target. I'm not sure, but I thought it used to be where you could only have one Velocious Curse on a target. But now they changed it so it does a lot of damage too, if you could see. And it also does damage to nearby players, so I like to use it on like people that are stacked in a little ball. Okay, and for your ultimate for the Destruction Staff bar, I kind of change mine around depending on like how I feel. I know people might think I'm kind of crazy because I know Eye of the Storm is really popular here in the Destruction Staff skill tree, but I like Icy Rage, which is the stationary morph. And obviously you need to use an ice staff, but I like Icy Rage because I like using it on people that are like really clumped up together and then it freezes them into place, or immobilizes them. So I usually use that when people are coming in a breach at a keep, or they're going through like a choke point. But yeah, it's situational. It doesn't do like that much damage, but I like it, and it's good to coordinate with other people who are using other skills. It's definitely good if you can get someone using a negate, and then you can use Icy Rage on them. So if I'm not using this skill, sometimes I use... oops. I just recently changed my morphs, and I forgot to reset this. Oops, no, wrong one. Sometimes I use Dawnbreaker of Smiting. If I'm like kind of solo roaming. I don't know, it depends. It doesn't really do that much damage anymore because of it does like physical damage now. And then of course other times I use Shooting Star, which does a lot of damage. It's a really good skill. I like Shooting Star. Sometimes I run that on my back bar though. But again, it depends on like what you're doing, how you're playing, if you're with a group, if you're solo. So, but this is generally how my offensive bar looks with these skills here, 1 to 5. Alright, on my back bar, I always run Healing Ward. I need a heal. There's not much to say about Healing Ward. It's a really great skill, but if you're kind of running, if you're Zerg surfing, you might not get the heal until you're almost dead. So that's my only concern with this. Like, I guess I do kind of Zerg surf a lot, because it's hard not to these days. Yeah, like if your Healing Ward doesn't go on you, it's a bit annoying, but normally it's okay. I also run Daedric Minefield, which not much to say about that. It kind of keeps away like the Nightblades and the people that want to like fight right on top of you. So it's a good skill to use. I have Streak on my back bar. I used to run Streak where Hardened Ward is on my offensive bar. Right here. And I used to be so used to that, so it took me a long time to get used to Streak being on my back bar. But now I really like it, and I think it would be like too hard to play it on my offensive bar. So I like Streak here. It's very useful for me, how I play. And here, these last two skills, they can kind of be changed depending on what you're doing. I know people don't like shield stacking, but I like having Harness Magicka on my bar for those times when I'm being chased by like a Zerg or just outnumbered. I use it when I'm trying to escape. I will pop Harness Magicka because people are usually shooting you with like some Magicka skills, and I like to absorb that so I can get some Magicka back as I'm trying to escape. So I think Harness Magicka is pretty useful when you use it defensively, but I don't spam it that often. And I like Power Surge obviously for the major sorcery, because I don't know, my sorcerer does not have a lot of spell damage. Unbuffed, it's 2084. Let me pop that Power Surge. Oh, my food just ran out. Hold on, my food's running out. Okay. So with Power Surge, it's 2470, and then I have increase your weapon and spell damage by 320 for 5 seconds. So when that procs, it's like 27, like around 2700, so it's not bad. But I don't, like, without it, my spell damage is pretty crappy. So I like to have this on my bar when I'm soloing, or if I'm in a group, if I have the room, I'll keep it on my bar. But if I am... where is it? If I am in a group, sometimes I'll just put Proxy on my bar instead of... Actually, no. I normally keep Power Surge. I usually put Proxy on my bar instead of Daedric Minefield, because if you're... I don't know how you play in a group, but if I'm in a group, we're usually moving around. So I don't really stand still long enough to really need Daedric Minefield. Alright, and for the ultimate on my back bar, I usually have Negate. I use the Suppression Field morph. I never actually tried the other one, Absorption Field I think it's called. So I don't know how that one is, but I usually use Suppression Field. And obviously this is a really good skill because it completely negates any Magicka builds. So that's what I run on my back bar. And what other skills are pretty good? If I'm running in a group, I'll put Restraining Prison here instead of Velocious Curse. And that's a really good skill because it snares all the enemies in front of you. And then when the effect ends, it also slows them down, which is pretty neat. So I use that alongside of Icy Rage, or, you know, if I'm in a group, it'll help out the other players who are using their ultimates. Sorry, that's really bad explanation. Oh yeah, and if I'm in a group, I usually run Boundless Storm instead of Harness Magicka. Basically, I like the Major Expedition because it kind of helps me keep up with group players. And you also get a nice physical and spell resistance increase, which is, I guess it's good to have. So yeah, that's what I usually have if I'm in a group. But if I'm solo, this is generally what I run. Or of course Shooting Star. I love Shooting Star. I actually run Shooting Star way more often than my Destruction Staff skill. Alright, so what else do I have to talk about? I have to talk about the CPs. Okay, so I have 80 in Magician, 73 in Arcanist, 33 in Tumbling, and I wish I could make it 10%. In the Apprentice, I have 46 in Elfborn, 100 in Elemental Expert, and 40 in Spell Erosion. And I don't know, I heard Spell Erosion is good to have on your Magicka builds, so I've been running with it. And I mean, I guess it's working out. I don't really know if it's useful or not, but basically I don't really know where else I would put these skill points, so I just keep them here in Spell Erosion. For some reason I have 1 point here in Staff Expert, and I don't think I have any in here. I used to have points in Thaumaturge, but I don't think that affects Velocious Curse damage anymore, so I took them out, and I don't know if... I don't think this is useful really anymore for Magicka Sorcerers. I don't think so. I have 22 points in Resistance. I used to have a lot more points in here, but I die so fast anyway when my shields are down, so it just doesn't really make a difference. I put 5 points into Ironclad, 23 points into Elemental Defender, and 37 into Hardy, and 100 points into Bastion. Alright, so that's kind of where my CPs are at, and I just realized I have 1 available point in in the Thief. I don't know why. Where should I put it? I don't know where to put this point. Maybe I'll just put it to Tenacity, okay. Yeah, so that's kind of how I have built my Sorcerer. I'm not the best PvPer out there. I think I'm okay. I do like decent, but I die a lot also. So that's just kind of how I play my Sorcerer. There might be better gear out there, but I like using crafted sets, and I've used the Seducer set. Or actually, no. Not this specific Seducer set, but I've used Seducer on my Magicka characters for quite a while, so I'm really used to having it. And I like the Spinners set because it gives you Magicka and some spell damage and also spell penetration, which is useful. I think that's probably really useful against heavy armor wearers. People who wear heavy armor, which is like majority of the population in PvP now. And you can kind of do whatever you want with this extra piece here. I kind of liked having Infernal Guardian, but I wish it wasn't infused. But it gives me some nice extra Magicka here. It brings me up to 38,000. Also, if you have the Masters, or not the Masters, the, what is it, Maelstrom weapons, those might be better for you. I have never completed Veteran Maelstrom Arena because I'm bad. So that might work out for you. It'll free up some slots so you can maybe do something else here with your gear. But that's just what I run, so I hope you found this useful. Again, disclaimer, it is not the best build out there. It's what works for me. So if you want to try it out, then that's fantastic. Let me know how it works out for you. And thanks so much for watching, everyone. I hope you found this useful and not too cringeworthy. And I will see you guys in some other video. Bye!